Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Brookbanks podcast. I'm your host, Ben Wakeling, the head of cost and commercial here at Brookbanks. Today, I've got three guests. I've got Isabelle Latuszka, who is a graduate here at Brookbanks, Hannah Simpson, who is assistant project manager, and I'm joined also by Fran Walker, who is development director. All four of us Brookbanks employees. Today, we're going to be talking about the graduate scheme and the graduate rotation program that we use here at Brookbanks, but which will be used by most companies up and down the country. And we're going to talk about the importance of graduates, the importance of bringing new people into the industry, specifically the construction industry, and the kinds of challenges that are faced, but also the excellent things that new graduates can bring to companies. But to start off, as we usually do, we'll do a little round the table introduction. So we'll start with you first, Izzy. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to Brookbanks.
Hi, I'm Isabelle Latuszka. I joined Brookbanks 18 months ago on the graduate rotation scheme, so I've been making my way through all of the departments. I was previously a geography student at Cardiff University.
Brilliant. Hannah, over to you next.
Hello, I'm Hannah Simpson. I'm assistant project manager. I was on the graduate scheme with Izzy, started in July 2024, so worked through all the different departments, and I studied environmental science at the University of Birmingham before joining.
Excellent, thank you. And then finally, Fran.
Hi everyone, I'm Fran Walker, so I'm a development director in the development management group. I started my career over at Taylor Wimpey on a graduate scheme. Started actually as a finance graduate, but quickly moved to the general graduate scheme, where very similar to the Brookbank scheme, you rotate through every department. It was a very beneficial scheme in the terms of you learn everything that each department does, get lots of different experiences and different locations across the UK. Since then, I've worked for another major PLC house builder, and I've now been at Brookbanks 2 years, working my way up from associate director through to senior associate director and now development director.
Excellent. Why did you jump so quickly from finance graduate? Was it because numbers are boring?
Probably, I'm not going to say numbers are boring because I'm sure a lot of people on this podcast will enjoy numbers. But for me, I really liked when I got to site is that problem solving nature of working on large construction sites rather than the repetitiveness of doing the accountancy side.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, numbers can be quite repetitive and boring, speaking from experience. Excellent, thank you. Yeah, well, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on. Izzy and Hannah, I'm really intrigued, first of all, just to understand why it is that you wanted to join the construction industry. What is it about construction that appealed to you? We'll go to Hannah first.
Yeah, so while I was at uni, I enjoyed my degree, but I wasn't really sure about which direction I wanted to go in. And construction is a really broad industry. So there's a lot of opportunities in going into a graduate scheme where you get to explore different groups before committing to one you want to be in permanently was a really good way to start my career. And I think the construction industry as a whole is just very fast paced, it'll keep you on your toes, and it's just a constant learning experience.
Excellent, thank you. Izzy, anything to add from you?
I think for me, it's like the real world impacts, and I see it on my two like main projects that I work on. One site in Exeter that's like basically completed, and there's people living in there, and you can see the effects it has on like the smaller tasks and stuff. And then to compare that to a site that's completely brand new, and like the work that I'll be doing will impact people's lives, and like people will be living there, and
Hmm.
that's really good
Yeah,
way to view it.
no, I completely agree. I mean, was construction ever offered as a career, a potential career in school for you both? Because it wasn't for me. I don't know about you, Fran,
Definitely not.
which is really interesting, isn't it? I mean, there's no wonder why there's so few people coming into the construction industry because it's just not talked about as a potential opportunity for lots of young people. I think if people were to think about construction, they'd probably instantly think about being outside in the cold and wet, which might be great for some very, very skilled people who are far more DIY centric than I am. But Hannah, as you said, it's really broad. You can get involved in a whole range of things. And
Yeah, just jumping on that, I think actually it's not as general as a lot of people think out. It's not the whole Bob the Builder picture that you think you see at school. There's actually a lot of different elements to it, whether it being in the civil engineering side, the cost and commercial side, all the way to planning. And actually, until you've experienced a few weeks, days, whether that's through an internship or a graduate scheme where you're rotating, it's really there's so many different disciplines you can get involved in, which makes it much more exciting. And I think actually probably a rare opportunity, we've got 3 women on this podcast again. When you're at school, you often think of it's the men out on the sites, but actually you go to meetings these days and it's much more gender balanced, and it's really exciting to see actually women being on site, going and challenging civil engineering, challenging the structural engineering as well. So it's much more open industry, but still a lot of work needs to happen to just make sure people are being taught at school and understanding the opportunities we have here.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Izzy said, one of the very few industries where you see something for all your hard work. So you get into the office or get out on site, you work hard every day, and in a lot of businesses and a lot of industries, there's not really anything that comes out the other side. Whereas with construction, you can physically walk around a site that you've been involved in. You can go into a house that you helped design, cost, build. And as you said, it affects people's lives. It impacts people's lives. So it's amazing to me that it's not an industry that's talked about more. But there you go. All right, enough love letter talk to the industry. We're all getting a bit kind of teary-eyed and wistful. Let's talk about the graduate rotation program because this was something I never thought about when I left school. But it looks like a really good thing to get on. So what are the benefits, Izzy and Hannah, about the graduate rotation program? But stepping back for my first question is what first interested you in going on to a graduate rotation program? We'll start with you first, Izzy, this time.
For me, I think grad schemes are very common these days. I think all of my peers at university were either going into a graduate scheme, masters, or travelling. So I think it was kind of the way in to an industry that maybe you haven't had much experience into. So like coming from a geography degree, it was quite broad, and I wanted to be able to get into something and gain experience before actually going into a full-time role into it. I think that was what drew me towards a graduate scheme.
Yeah, agree. Hannah, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was very much in the same situation out of uni. I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to commit to one specific discipline. So it offered a really good opportunity, not only to, feel out loads of different disciplines, but also gain a bit of experience in all of them. So I felt a bit more secure moving forward with my knowledge and understanding, moving into a permanent position.
To talk us through the rotations that you've both been on so far. So for those who don't know, who are listening and maybe not familiar with Brookbanks, there's 6 business groups within Brookbanks. You've got my group, which is cost and commercial, Fran's group, which is development management, and then you've got 3 engineering groups, civil structures and M&E, and then you've got the land development and communities team. And if anyone wants to find out any more about any of those groups, just head over to brookbanks.com and there's all the information you could ever need there. So with that in mind, then, which which groups have you gone through so far? Then, Hannah, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so when I first started, I was in the land development and communities group, and I was in there for about 6 months. After that, I moved into briefly mechanical electrical engineering. That was only a month stint, and then went into development management for 3 months. I think from memory. I then went to cost and commercial for another 3 months, and then since moved back to development management. So the only one that I didn't get to do was structural engineering,
Okay, and you finished.
and
Sorry, go on.
I did civil engineering as well.
So you did civil engineering as well. That's great, and you've ended up in the development management team. You are working with Fran currently. Um, Izzy, how about you? Which did you follow a similar path?
So I actually started in civil engineering, which I think was a really good base because you're kind of designing things from the get-go, thrown into the deep end, and you learn a lot of like the systems like CAD, like 3D, which you can kind of relate into other departments eventually. I then moved into cost with you, Ben, but I think I joined before you started, which is obviously good. Yeah, got a high like a background of everything and kind of summarise the information I learned from civil almost from a different view. I then moved into LDC, land development communities, which was really interesting, learnt a lot kind of related to my degree, so I kind of picked some stuff up from there. And then I moved into DM and I have been there ever since.
So you've stayed in DM as well, then, as well as Hannah. So really, what we're saying is that Fran's got the best team,
Yeah, fell in love with DM.
obviously.
Obviously, yeah. No, I think from a development management perspective, it's fantastic having graduates come through, because what we often say is we're the team that gets to support all other teams. When we have people come through the business that have actually experienced what the civil engineers have to do, they get understanding of timeframes and workload and actually how the processes work, so you can implement that on site. And very similar, when you've got team members in your team that have pulled together a cost plan, that have managed to challenge professional fees and other elements for projects, it's really beneficial for the wider scheme going forward, and alongside their development as well.
It sounds like a really good scheme. Because as you said, Hannah, sometimes a lot of people, when you leave uni, aren't really sure in which direction to go in. They know what they kind of broadly like and don't like, but you don't want to commit fully to a career in one discipline that actually you get 2 or 3 weeks in and find out that you're not really suited to it, or you don't like it that much. And so it really gives you the opportunity to try out a whole load of different disciplines, and then at the end of it, choose the one that you prefer. And I think I should imagine a lot of school and uni leavers are in the same boat. When I was at school, I was kind of really pushed towards a uni, um, towards going to university, but I had no idea what I wanted to do, and kind of fell into the construction industry, fortunately. But a graduate rotation sounds like a really good way of testing the waters before you dive in, really. So you've both gone through your rotations. Um, are there any projects that really stand out for either of you that you played a key role in, that you really contributed towards, and that really kind of stick in your memory? I don't mind who goes first. Let's go with you, Hannah, this time.
Yeah, so when my first rotation when I was in development management, when we started work on the project, I started my rotation there. So that was really good timing for me to get properly involved in that project. And it's a site in Cambridge, Bourne Airfield, and I managed to help set up all the initial documents for our project management. So all the control documents, helped set up the invoicing procedure, the professional fee forecasting with you, Ben, as well. We set that up and got to know all the consultants working on the project from an early stage. So then that meant that when I came back to the development management team, I'd still been working on that project in the background and still kept like relevant understanding of where the project was at. And I've managed to take those roles and responsibilities into my new role, and also managed to take on some more hands-on work, which has been really beneficial for me from a learning perspective. But it's also been really good to see how it's also been used for the project to progress.
Brilliant. Izzy, have you got anything that sticks in your mind? You've done a lot of work on Bourne Airfield as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm currently working on Bourne and a site in Exeter. So I've been able to work on them since I started in DM really. So just to be able to be hands on for 10 months or so, and like to see the progression in just that time is really, really cool. I think a site to give an example of the rotation scheme and, from different departments is probably Eastern Green as well, because I did a lot of work in Eastern Green in civil engineering, and then I've been able to help in DM as well and in other departments. So it's kind of just bringing it all together and working on the project on all of the departments. Just a good example of the rotation scheme.
I think from my perspective, so both of these ladies work on my scheme at Bourne Airfield, which I'm project director. What's incredibly beneficial as well is the different diverse backgrounds and degrees that they have. So Izzy, with her geography background, has really naturally helped from the planning side of things. And actually having those different experiences and not everyone from the same background is a fantastic help for me, because it challenges norms and challenges practices that we're doing on site, which only helps us value elevate our schemes that we're working on. So when we have people come to the graduate scheme, what is refreshing is pulling people from all sorts of different backgrounds, experiences, and it just makes it much more challenging and interesting for us as a team.
Yeah, and well-rounded, I suppose, as well, isn't it? Because if you've gone through a graduate rotation scheme, you'll be able to see your work that you're doing through, in Brookbank's case, 6 different lenses, because you'll have spent time in each of those teams. You'll be able to understand if you're working on something and sitting in development management, for example, you'll be able to see how someone in civils or cost or structures might see the work that you're doing, the challenges that they might have, the way that they might see something. So an example of perhaps, I don't know, foundations or something. You if you're looking at foundation solutions for a scheme, you will know from your time in structures, what kind of foundation solutions. You'll know from your time in cost and commercial which are the most expensive and which we should veer away from. And so what it allows you to do, I suppose, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you're not siloed. You're not just thinking about cost and commercial. You're not just thinking about civils. You've got an appreciation of a much more well-rounded view of the work that you're doing. Does that sound? Am I on the right track?
Yeah, definitely.
I think the one thing that sticks out for me since doing the rotation is kind of like you're working on a project and say you have a question for cost or civil, you know exactly who to go to because you spent 3 months in that team and you've been a part of the team and you know exactly who to go to ask questions, and there's no delays, and you can go back to a client and can like answer that with full like confidence because you know who the right person to speak to almost. So it's a good example of Brookbanks as a whole and integrating between departments on a project.
Well, yeah, that's good. That's another point I'd not thought of is the network that you grow by going through each of these different groups and different teams is much wider than someone who has just worked through their career again in that kind of silo, perhaps. So you'll have, despite you both deciding to stay in development management, which is a very interesting team. I don't begrudge you for not choosing cost, but yeah, you will still have a network of people that you can rely on in engineering circles, in cost circles, not necessarily even within Brookbanks, but outside of Brookbanks as well. And as you all rise through the ranks, together, you'll build those relationships. Really beginning to wish I'd done a graduate rotation scheme.
You always go back then and have a go. Go on.
Yeah, I might. Yeah, I might go back to school and start again. Um, let's talk about the challenges though. So going from one rotation to another after maybe 2 or 3 months within each group, what are the kind of key challenges that you face when starting with a new team, starting in a new discipline, and with a new group? Izzy, we'll go to you first.
I think for me, the second rotation I did, it was kind of like, well, I've realised what I've got myself into now because it's almost like you're starting a whole new job over again. Like you have the basic like knowledge now after the 3 months and you've kind of integrated yourself, but you've got to learn a whole new set of skills, a whole new set of like terminology, software, knowledge, and it's kind of like almost starting over again and again. And you learn a lot that way, and it is a positive way of learning because you're just thrown in the deep end, which I've obviously learned a lot from. And
Yeah, I take your point on starting again. You must feel like you've done 2 or 3 months, built up a load of knowledge, and then all of a sudden you're in another group and having to start again with unfamiliar systems, perhaps, and unfamiliar skills. Hannah, anything to add from you on that point?
Yeah, I think it was quite similar to Izzy, to be honest, but I think it's more just at the end of each, like when you get to the end of the 3 months, you start to feel like you kind of know what you're doing, you're getting integrated into the team, and then you finish and you go straight into a new team. And sometimes the teams can work quite differently just because of the nature of the work that they do. So it's trying to get used to different ways of people's working. But I mean, it's also been really helpful getting an understanding of that because it helps kind of communicate ideas across different departments of what works really well for some teams and what might maybe not work so well for others. And I think from like my time on the graduate scheme, people would ask me, oh, how did this team do their weekly meetings and stuff like that? And I think it's been a really good way of sharing ideas across departments.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I know I've benefited from you guys' insights into other groups. And Fran, from your point of view as a manager in a team, when you have a new graduate start, what's the best thing that you can do as a manager to help them settle in, to help them overcome any of these challenges that they face?
So I think from my perspective, it's as much exposure as you possibly can get them on. So actually, from a development management team, it's a really hard team to come in as your first rotation because we are a much more overseeing of all sorts of things, whereas something like civil engineering and structural engineering, you can normally get cracking straight on some drawings. Just complete exposure for someone, so getting them involved in as many team meetings, making sure the clients are happy to have them involved, and getting lots of different work streams. So from the development management perspective, that could be looking and reviewing a technical section 38 drawing that the civil engineers might have been done. It could be going through and supporting in a cost plan meeting with the commercial team, and then all the way through to the planning side of things, all the way through to adoption as well. So it's having that range of experience. And what we like is when we get a graduate maybe that's been to 2 rotations in particular, they know the processes that are happening with that commercial team or what they do in civil engineering team. And as you said Ben earlier, coming in and challenging what we're doing and questioning it. I think from me, no question is a silly question. Whether that be questioning what an acronym is or questioning what a cost plan is, because you soon realise that a lot of the people sat in your team meetings also don't know what that acronym is, and it's really beneficial to just air that out and talk those questions and problems through as a team.
Yeah, definitely. And I think creating that culture of a graduate feeling like they're able to come to you and ask those what they might consider silly questions is really important. Instead of sitting there thinking, "Oh, I don't understand any of this," and getting more and more worked up, is letting them know that they can ask if they feel like they're
And
getting stuck.
from my point of view, it's making sure that you're working with lots of different people in the team. For instance, both Izzy and Hannah have one-to-ones with different members, whether that be a project manager, a principal project manager, just to make sure that we understand different ways of working. And when you can't always get in touch with myself or in touch with our group director, Tori, you've got that person that you can come and ask questions to and have as much visibility and transparency to project work as possible.
Yeah, I mean, Izzy and Hannah, from your point of view, are there any tips that you would give to managers who have got a graduate in their team, or any experiences that you had where you felt like you could ask a manager for help, or a manager put some kind of structure in place that really supported you as in your first couple of weeks in a new team? Any tips or tricks from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I would say what helps me is just having an idea of structure. So, especially if you're new into a department, having an idea of some initial goals that they want you to achieve so you can kind of try and get exposure to that type of work is really helpful. Because sometimes you just start in a department, you're like, okay, I can do work. What do you want me to do? And then it's easy to just get stuck doing the odd little job. So, having a clear set of goals to work towards has always been really helpful for me. And then you can kind of structure the work that you do off the back of that and find what you enjoy.
I think for me, it's setting the time aside to give like a good brief. I know like obviously everyone's so busy, but if you do like one good brief, then you don't have to explain a task every time because they should have got that from the first time. And I think since obviously Hannah and I have joined, we've had another set of grads, like a grad co-op join as well. So they've been able to go to us as more of a stepping stone to ask questions, which has allowed them to take time off, directors and higher up people. So we can explain it to them from like a graduate side almost.
Oh, I think that's really important, is taking the manager taking the time to explain the task to the graduate or the junior member staff or whoever it might be. The temptation is always, as you say, Hannah, just to throw the small kind of relatively menial tasks at the graduate, but all that happens is the manager still has a load of stuff to do on their to-do list. They're not utilizing the help that's there. The graduate's sitting there thinking, well, all I'm doing is, the basic work, and I want to get stuck in. So it's really important that the manager, as you've both quite rightly said, first of all takes the time to delegate properly and explain the task, but also recognizes that the graduate is there as a really helpful resource, and they're keen to learn.
I think there's also a sweet spot because you do want to try figure stuff out yourself and like be exposed to problem solving and sorting out, but also you need to have the guidance there as well, especially as a grad. So it's
Hmm.
kind of finding the balance, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, all right, as we're beginning to run out of time, I suppose what we want to do is anyone who's listening to this and thinking, well, why would I go for a graduate over, someone with a few years experience and pay a bit more? So what are the arguments for a manager or a business owner listening to this, going out there and actively seeking graduates? And I think the reason I ask this question is because, Fran, you've touched on a couple of things about challenging, new faces, new eyes, new thoughts, challenging existing protocols, existing processes, and bringing with them new skills and new life experiences. Are you able to elaborate on that a little bit more,
I
please?
think it is those new life's experience. So I think often when you get into your career, you're 5, 10, 15 years into your career, you can become quite siloed and you carry on doing what you've always done. You need fresh people with different life experiences, different challenges to come and say, well, why don't you do it this way? And as going back to that silly question, no question is silly. Uh, what I love about having the graduates come into the team, they will question, why is the foul going to that outfall? Why are you building the foundations that way? And actually, it just makes us all, it's very refreshing from our point of view. And as I said, it's bringing different team members, different cultures, different experiences previously. Now, not all our graduates are straight out of university. Some have got life experience there as well. And that's actually really fundamental. They've been to different cultures, they've been around the world. And again, it's creating a team environment, and it's, again, challenging norms and problem solving. Biggest part in construction is problem solving. Now, if you're asking questions at a very basic level, it's going to help ask questions when you get further on up as well.
Yeah, the amount of meetings I've been in when someone has asked a question that you initially think is quite basic, and then everyone goes, "Oh yeah, actually, yeah, we could do it this way." Izzy, Hannah, anything to add on that? I mean, you guys will be experts in AI, which is something that, might go over the heads of most people. Yeah, do you think you've got skills and experience in that area to bring to a company and help improve processes and so on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just seeing where it can be used most efficiently. So for meetings, writing meeting minutes, agendas, summarizing reports. If you need to review a report and it's a 50-page document, putting it in and taking out key points will just help quicken the process up. You don't want to use it to write a report for you, taking away the technical aspect, but just using it to your advantage to kind of help make processes a bit quicker. And I think it's been really helpful to me, learning about how I can use it for bits of work that I've been involved in. And it has definitely made my life a bit easier. And I think trying to communicate that across the team to people that may not want to use it as frequently, that it can actually be a real help and isn't just, something that's going to take over your job by writing reports that you normally do.
Yeah.
It can actually be a really useful resource.
Excellent. Is there anything to add on that before we wrap up?
On the AI side, I think I've used it a lot to my advantage of like picking up quick tricks on CAD to say, or like researching things I've read in a report and be like, oh, I'm not sure what that actually means, and then just quickly putting that in, and then it will explain it to me rather than, again, asking someone when I could have just, Googled it almost.
Excellent. So there it is. Graduates are not just a handy resource and starting out their career, they can also shake up existing protocols, the existing norms, and help people see things through fresh eyes. Final question then to you both, Hannah and Izzy. If there was a university leaver listening to this, thinking about going on a graduate rotation scheme, or looking at their next steps, what would you say to them if they were considering a rotation? Izzy, you first.
Go for it. That's what I'd say.
Very good. Chat didn't write that one, so I'm
No.
happy with that answer. Hannah, how about you?
Izzy stole my answer.
Okay, yeah, good.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for
They're
it.
like, what could go wrong, really?
Well, that's a good mindset to have. Be daring. Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming on. We will have you back for a Women in Construction podcast because you touched on that, Fran. I think that's very, very important. We need to do that. We'll get on that straight away. If anyone listening wanted to get in touch, how can they do so? Fran, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so please feel free to add me on LinkedIn, which is Fran Walker, or drop me an email with fran.walker@brookbanks.com.
Okay, thank you, Hannah.
Yep, my email is hannah.simpson@brookbanks.com, or my LinkedIn, just Hannah Simpson.
You'll be one of many Hannah Simpsons, but people will find you if they look hard enough. Izzy, you're probably the only Izzy Latuszka on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I should be easy to find. Isabelle Latuszka on LinkedIn or isabelle.latuszka@brookbanks.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you all again for coming on. Thank you for your thoughts and your insights. That's the end of another Brookbanks podcast. We'll see you next time.